This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good afternoon. Time being 4:45-ish. I'd like to call the August 6th, 2020 meeting of the Tilton Select Board to order. Before we get started, if you're participating by phone or the GoToMeeting platform, please mute your microphone during the meeting unless you want to speak. Otherwise, background noise will interfere with the meeting. The Select Board is meeting at Town Hall and providing access via GoToMeeting and conference call to enable the public to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting. Additionally, there's an opportunity for the public to attend the meeting in person. However, in order to maintain social distancing, only 8 spaces are available and attendance is on a first come, first served basis. Masks are required. Once the limit has been reached, anyone wishing to participate in the meeting must do so remotely. If anyone has a problem with remote access to the meeting, please email web@tiltonnh.org, which will be monitored during the meeting. This is the new and improved preamble to the Selectmen's meeting. Would you please? Oh, I have one other thing. For the Selectmen, prior to speaking this evening, please pull down your mask because Gail is having a really hard time. A lot of the words are muffled because of the mask. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I'd like to bring the minutes of July 23rd to the table for discussion. Has everybody had a chance to go through the minutes? And are there any changes? Okay.
Not necessarily. That's to the board whether you want to change it or not. When our second time when we went into non-public and came back out and we told the public that we were hiring someone, in the minutes, we say we made a, which is true, we made a motion, seconded it, no discussion. Well, you think that we could probably elaborate on that a little bit and say the discussion was held in non-public or something to indicate to the public that's going to read this 5 years from now that we did discuss this. It looks when they read this that we didn't think about this. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. So it looks like we, to the public that's going to read this 5 years from now, that we didn't think about it. We just went, oh yeah, let's just hire somebody.
And when I reviewed the minutes with Gail, I noted that as well. However, that's what was actually said in the minutes. So we can make a note of it in these minutes that, that was discussed if you want, but
How can we
in
get
the
around
future,
that?
in the future, we should have had more of a discussion. Yeah,
Okay,
if you want, if it's, I understand what you're saying.
right.
I agree. I think that's important. If you want to do it, we can add in the line. I don't think anyone's going to come to the town because they have the line.
Interesting story to go with that. Just to extend the meeting a little bit more. I went to a school board meeting once and they made a motion to approve $170 some odd thousand to replace computers that they had replaced 2 years prior. And it wasn't a thing of discussion. And it was like, second, no discussion, vote, and I'm going, 170, that you didn't even talk about it. Which I found very frustrating, but all the conversation had happened in a non-public session. That's why, and there was no note of it made.
Right.
So So I think that we need to be cognizant of that as a board, that when we do come out, and because we've done this in the past, come out of non-public and we say, after much discussion, we've come to a decision that there was a vote, and then we could say that as part of the minutes then, and then the people would kind of know that we did have a discussion over this. Okay.
Bill, just, are we allowed to say that what we discussed in non-public?
No.
So we can't really say that.
Unless you want to seal that portion.
Just the action that you took.
Yeah, so we'd have to say we'd like to disclose one of the topics that we discussed in non-public and vote on that. And that topic would be.
Yeah, I'm sure we can work that out
So
like,
somehow
next
work
time
that
it
in.
comes up.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Is there any other notes or comments?
Joseph, just an observation. I notice most of my votes are in a lowercase where most of the others are in uppercase. Or the yeses are uppercase and the noes are lowercase.
You think there's a conspiracy?
Just interesting.
Take,
No, because there's a yes here on.
well,
page
she's
5.
inconsistent. Take note, Gary. Okay. I make a motion to accept the minutes of July 23rd as
Yes, as
Presented.
presented, yeah.
is there a second?
Ira second.
Ira seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Roll call vote?
Just by the way, you don't have to do that anymore.
We had it down. So good. Okay. All those in favor?
If you want.
No. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the deputy chief. Won't you come on up? Have a seat here at the table.
The hot seat. Hot seat. Okay, right, pass out some information.
Oh, that would be great.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Watch the cord.
Yeah.
Yeah, that caught others.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone for allowing me to come and speak to you today. My name is Tim, I think I've met most of you in the past.
Could you take your mask off for?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but they won't be able to understand you through the microphone.
So I kind of just.
Whatever you want to do.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. My name is Tim, Deputy Fire Chief of the Fire Department. I'm here today to talk to you about post-plan of a training event that we may be doing in Tilton. And I just want to make you aware of it and kind of go through the process of where we are at this time. Hopefully answer any questions that you may have about the training. So as you're probably aware, there's a new car dealership going in Tilton. The AutoZer Group and Planet Honda have asked us if we'd be interested in using some of their homes that they're getting rid of to train. Live fire training is by far the best training for members of our department in the area community. It's the most realistic thing that you can do and to prepare our staff. So the 3 buildings, well, originally they wanted us to do all of them. And we said, no, we can't do that. But there's 3 that we felt we could do safely in that area. That would be 80 East Main Street, 4 Morrison, which is the old upholstery shop, split level, and the one directly behind that, which is 6 Morrison. It's closest to there. What we'd like is,
Sorry.
no, that's okay. 6 Morrison, which is on the riverside. We're still at the planning stages at this point. Nothing is finalized yet. What we'd like to do is utilize the empty space where the dealership's going to go, set up most of the apparatus. Would be on the weekends. most likely a Sunday. We start at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it would be gone by noontime. The majority of the apparatus, the water supply would be there. There'd be a few pieces on Morrison. I've had the opportunity to walk up and down Morrison on numerous occasions and talk to the majority of the residents to see if they had any issues or concerns. Most everybody I've had contact with is in favor of it. They're actually excited to see it if it does take place. I've spoken to Chief Warner at the Tilton PD to see if it'd be an issue as far as traffic control goes. He doesn't think it'll be an issue. He said he'd be there that day to help out however was needed. This is going to be a big venture for us. It's a great opportunity for not only Tilton with the fire EMS, but the Lakes region in general. So we'd like to do all 3 houses. So the way that it'll play out is one house would be 2 area apartments. Another house would be, let's say, Tilton, Northfield, and Franklin. And the third house would be 2 area apartments. Be 3 separate fires, all taking place at the same time, while working under different commands. Like I said, the goal is 5 o'clock, first fire lit at 6 o'clock. We're usually done by 10, by pickup time and everything like that. Everyone gone by noontime. I've had the opportunity to organize and run a few of these in my career, and it can be done effectively and safely. They're in the process right now of going through all the assessments on all the homes and looking for asbestos and other environmental hazards. Auto surveying the Honda dealership, we're doing that. So I think it is finalized. The last inspection of the house last week. It was usually 10 days to 2 weeks to get those results back. And if there's anything that needs to be removed, they need to be removed that before the training. So there's no scheduled date at this time. So we asked them, we want us to do it last week. But realistically, I'm looking probably towards the end of August or September. I'd like to push out the later if possible. But we've kind of covered all our steps up to this point. We have all our calculations done. We're just waiting for that paperwork back so we can get everything squared away with DES and come up with an exact date when we want to do this. I think I've given some examples of some information that we'll pass out to the local residents and letters. Additional parking will be parked across the street at the Wade Building, so we're not going to be, making Morrison very congested during that time. I think I've probably gone over everything that we've done up to this point. Are there any questions or concerns to answer for you?
John, would you like to start?
Sure. As an, well, not direct about it, but on the street, I did talk to Tim about some questions about drainage and things like that. The locations of it would not cause water to flow down Morrison Ave, and that would be one concern, but that's already been covered. I haven't heard any complaints or anything from any of the neighbors. Tim said they seem interested in it. It benefits the neighborhood because if there ever was a fire, in a location such as that, good training opportunities to handle it. The timing seems right. It's very quiet out there that hour on Sunday mornings. There was one concern, the trees by number 80 and how that would be dealt with.
So the oak trees, I'm not positive about that. What I like to see happen, what I'm going to ask to happen, is trees that could be a potential hazard, especially the pine trees will have to be taken down because the tops of the pines get going. Could kind of get less really smoky and debris in the air. So those two groups, Auto Serve and Honda, are going to have to remove those prior to the burn, so we'll safely.
So part of the zoning board adjustment for allowing them to put it in, they created a buffer of trees, and those trees were circle on buffer that they would stay. So they would have to go back because that was part of the agreement. So I've had the opportunity to do a lot of these. And when we burn a house, it's just not like a match. You let it go. You do it room by room by room. It's controlled. And at the end, you let it go and kind of keep it as tight as possible and let as much burn as possible ends up in the cellar hole. We've had trees right up against buildings before that have survived. I can't guarantee that, but where the trees are located, I think there's a good chance that they'll be fine. yes, they would have to be protected because that is part of the agreement too.
And we have an exposure line for each house. So their job is really just to go around the house and, anything that's smoking, that shouldn't be smoking, put water on it and try to control it.
And so everybody was pretty, in the neighborhood that I haven't heard any complaints. And I think I would, I usually do.
Those, now,
Yeah.
at 6 Morrison, the one closest to the river, the small white house,
Yes.
those pine trees don't stay there either. There's nothing.
I think everything on that end, you'll have to look at the
Okay.
plans, but I believe that whole end, everything's coming out.
Yeah, I'm more concerned
Replanting.
about the pine trees in there.
Okay, thank you, John. Peter? Eric?
I guess my only question is, will you say, show a water supply? There's a little pile of dirt there right now.
There is.
A mountain.
So we're going to be utilizing portable water tanks that hold 2,500 gallons. Each one will have 4 of them, about 2 engines, plus a water supply pumping all the other apparatus.
I'm all set.
That was one of my questions. The other question is, will we be putting this on Alert Tilton and let the town know that this is what's happening so they can avoid that area or
I've
concerns?
spoken to Chief Cormier about using the electronic sign that the town has. He said that would be a problem. You're totally on board with doing that. Letting people know, I think, the more information we get out about it, the better off you're going to be, not to surprise anybody. I will also be going across the street to all the businesses and speaking to them as well. I know we did one by NV Tractor a couple of years ago. They don't have any issues with it, but let's keep everybody on the same page and make sure they know what we're doing and that we're doing it.
Is that it, Pat?
Mhm.
My only concern really is the issue of smoke. You're gonna burn 3 houses down. It's gonna create a lot of smoke, I would imagine. Right there by the river, the opportunities for the smoke to basically travel that corridor and right down into downtown seem pretty high. And I have only anecdotal information because I don't have the exact dates or whatever. But there was a fire, wasn't preset, but in that neighborhood before, and somewhere up there, it all blew down the river. And it was like a big thing, and there was people that have oxygen. This one in Northfield, who had severe problems with this. Are you familiar with that at all?
Are you talking about Surrey Battery?
Oh, no, not at all. That's up
Way back
here.
when that piece of land, there was a hotel on there, it burned. It
I
was
was-
way
was
down the
not-
bottom.
Not aware of that.
It went down and all the smoke came up and there was people that
At 5:30 on Sunday morning, 6 o'clock on Sunday morning. So getting word out to everybody would be very, very important, I'm sure. And if you get in touch with Tim Pearson, I'm sure he can put this information on.
So
The
those
alert
that have, right, so those that had conditions could make appropriate action, take appropriate action.
I can't promise what the smoke is going to do.
I know you can, but that's an issue here.
The way that we do it, again, it's room by room. And it's not like the whole house is on fire. We did where Rap City is. We burned that house down and didn't have any issues, but I can't tell you that the wind's out of control. We're just not gonna do it.
And I was at the NB Tractor thing out back. Pretty good fun. Peter?
I don't think it can be any worse than the Christmas Eve tannery fire.
Yeah, that was a thing.
I wasn't around that.
That was a fiasco.
So because of those type of fires, and rightfully so, the restrictions are pretty significant through DES. So it all has to be done the right way or get some serious trouble, so.
So there was another question. Somebody had called me and they asked about the overtime, who would be paying for the overtime for the police department.
So far, I just know that Chief Cormier said that he was going to come. In the past, the fire department has worked with the PD on doing that. So I'm sure it's something, but I'm not sure. I haven't discussed it personally with him yet.
Because if there's extra traffic duty and
Sure.
things like that, the taxpayers want to be paid.
He did mention potentially getting a part-time person in for the event. So I don't know what that means as far as overtime, but in the past, we've worked with the PD on these type of events, so I'm sure that she organized something.
The other thing would be liability. So if something did go wrong, would that be on the town or on the fire?
Should be on fire.
Are there any other questions? Kevin?
You need of any extra barricades or cones?
No, I don't think so. We have enough cones and enough signage that I think that we can make it very safe and make it obvious what we're trying to do. But thank you, that's a good idea. But we should be all set as far as that's concerned.
Forward and burn.
Also going to try to incorporate a little bit of public education. Going to try to get the fire marshal's office here, hopefully around fire prevention week, just over to talk about the importance of smoke detectors, closing your bedroom doors. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to get a lot of training and hopefully maybe get some media here to get that information about the importance of those things.
Tell the roads love stories like that from the Echo.
So get maybe someone from the television to be a part of it as well. So it'd just be
Nice.
a great exposure.
Mhm.
Is there any other question? Jeannie, we don't need an official vote for this, do we? If it was a no, we'd vote. But yeah, I see a unanimous consensus.
I'll keep everybody advised of how we're progressing. Like I said, nothing is set in stone yet. They may find a bunch of asbestos in the house and that may happen, but I just wanted to make you aware in case someone asked you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. The time being 5:07, I'd like to make a motion to go into non-public session for RSA 91-A semicolon 3, paragraph 2A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charges against them. And RSA 91A semicolon 3, 2B, the hiring of any person as a public employee. We expect to be back into public session at 6:45 PM. Do I have a second?
Constantino, second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. This is a roll call vote. Constantino,
Constantino, yes.
Yes.
Testman, yes.
Myra, yes.
Scanlon, yes.
Okay, now we need to have a second for,
This conference will now be recorded.
Mr. Mitchell.
Make a motion that we seal the minutes of the non-public session as they pertain to personnel permanently.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those, is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That was-
Opposed?
Got a roll call vote.
No, we don't have to do roll call,
Seal
vote,
it, isn't it?
just to go in and out of the non-public session. Okay, we're back. We have just a couple minutes and I have the police chief sitting here. We have a couple questions for him, Chuck, if that's all right with you.
Sure, go right ahead.
All right, thank you very much. There's going to be a fire. Actually, several fires all at once up by Auto Serve across from Chili's. And wondering about the police presence on that morning. Overtime details or how many officers are involved, that kind of.
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna try and minimize overtime for that and see if we could get some part-timers to come in for it and myself and one of the command staff members would come in too. So that we have enough units out there, plus it's the overnight unit, so.
Is there any way that we can bill, if it came to that, to the fire district? They're burning houses on purpose. I mean, they're creating a traffic nuisance,
Yeah, we do have that mechanism in place if we need to.
something we might
But
think
when I
about.
talked to the deputy chief, I told him that, I would be there.
He said,
And I
mentioned that.
think, the captain was planning on coming in, depending on the date, and then.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I did get some calls on this. A lot of people feel strongly that taxpayers of Tilton should not be paying any of the overtime or wages for that because it benefits the private party as well as, it is the training for the district as well as Franklin, Belmont. So I feel the same that all costs for details or traffic duty should be borne by the district or other towns or private party who benefits by those houses being removed.
I agree.
I'm kind of in between on that agreeing because in theory, it's sort of like, we do SWAT training, we don't do SWAT training. The knowledge and the expertise that they gain from that is, if you pay $100 for an officer out there and you gain all the knowledge of and expertise where you're hands-on with something that you don't normally get hands-on without having real life and lives are at stake deal is invaluable. And how do you put a figure to that? And I think that kind of training, to me, is a win-win for not only the district, but the town and for the officers there too. So I could go either way on it, but I really do think it's a win-win for all of us.
So I'm still discussion because
Oh, yeah.
I sit on both boards, so.
Okay, so conflict. Anybody else? Questions for the chief? Okay, thank you very much, chief.
We didn't resolve that. Are we okay to use an officer or no?
We have to have the officers. The
Yeah.
billing part of
The
it,
billing part of it, we haven't resolved, so we're just gonna let them go out. Go ahead.
If the scenario plays out that it's me captain and a part-timer, is that something that would be acceptable? Because we're salaried.
This out.
I do feel there's value in this training for our district and as well as other districts, certainly.
Possibly, since we have Belmont and Franklin coming, they could do like mutual aid and also supply any additional options. They would be trained on handle fire training, so it'd be a joint police and fire.
That might be a great idea.
I mean, Tim, too, and I did talk about doing like this incident command. as part of it.
It's important to remember that although we benefit by the training, the person who has those houses that are being removed or burnt are saving substantial amounts of money too. And that's important to they should support.
Think about this, 3 houses at one time. When is that? Hope it never happens. Sorry about that.
Fire in the tree streets.
But think about
I don't want
that
that
kind
to
of
happen.
training, but that's an excellent idea. It's called Belmont. But what was the other one that was coming? Franklin. Just see,
In Laconia.
see if they want to,
Several.
see if they just want to send an officer. Be worthwhile.
I
It'd
know,
be a nice training.
release the marshmallows.
Yeah, I know, like the departments around us usually will come in. and do things.
Good hazard training for their departments.
But it's-
All around the fire.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell,
Yes, sir.
you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. As most of you probably know, I have been actively involved with many, many meetings with the Secretary of State and the select committee on holding the elections coming up in September and November. And according to the state statutes, as well as the Secretary of State's office, believe it or not, I am supposed to be the one individual with the dubious distinction of making some major decisions relative to these elections, one of which is whether or not masks will be required for voting. At this particular time and point, I am kind of inclined to go along with requiring all those who enter the high school building to be wearing a mask. If you've been following any of the social media, I'm sure you're aware that we have certain individuals who are rejecting the notion of wearing masks. And there are also some alternatives from the idea of the concept of putting a tent up outside or having a special area where they can vote, and also something called curbside voting. All these issues right now are still unresolved by the Secretary of State's office as well as the Attorney General's office. And today's meeting with the Secretary of State's office did nothing yet to kind of resolve any of these. As of right now, it would be my intent to require masks for anyone voting. And the question might be is whether or not it's entering the building or entering the voting area, which might be just a gymnasium. In the meantime, I do think it's imperative that we try to get together and have whether it's a virtual meeting or otherwise, of the ballot clerks, supervisors of the checklist, town clerk, town's health officer, at least one or more select board members, the town administrator, and the police chief to start planning for the logistics for September 8th. And by the way, there could be some major issues considering the fact that this is also the first day of school for the Winnisquam Regional School District. There is such a thing as curbside voting, and can you imagine a backlog of cars in the parking lot near the entrance to the high school while they're trying to either bring parents dropping off or leaving students or picking them up, or the school buses? I mean, this is really something which we have to discuss. There's also still many unknowns, and the Secretary of State's office, I'm hoping, will soon come out with some very concrete decisions. But the sooner that we can agree on some things, and the sooner that we can begin to notify the public. For example, I would see if we're going to end up requiring masks to enter the building, this is something that we need to make well known, whether it's not only on the town's website, through signage through town, or purchasing some signs that we can post at various locations, whether it be at places like Walmart and the Market Basket, because not everyone drives through town. However, there's a lot of possibilities, but I do think we all need to get together very quickly. And I don't want to be making any decisions in the absence of input from a wide variety of people who are going to be involved in the election. Let me just see. I got one or two more points. I think basically, in a nutshell, that's pretty much it. But I do want to make sure that everyone knows that, as you know, right now there's been a slight increase in new cases, I believe, related to COVID-19 in the town of Tilton, which in the total overall is now up to I believe, from 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 is now up in the vicinity of 10. When you saw the news today with what's New York is going to be entering into is stopping cars. The World Health Organization is now recommending everyone wear masks in public. Cities and towns throughout New Hampshire are now even putting in ordinances requiring masks in public. However, I want to make sure I'm working with the select board and not against them, and so we're all on the same page.
Chief, could you tell us? Hold on a second, Chuck. I have a question.
Sure.
Chief, could you, how many active cases there are in Tilton right now?
We had 3 come off. There was 3 on there for a week. They came off, and then they came off. We're at 1 right
So the chief tells me we have one in Tilton. That's the official thing anyway, I don't know.
Well, one of the issues that you have is what's available on the internet, what's available on through the WMUR and whatever. But there are apparently is at least one or more active cases locally. And as we try to predict the future, one of the things you don't know is from day to day, week to week, what's going to happen and where we are. So, but I have to, you have to, we all have to plan for the eventuality of what's going to happen on election day, which is September 8th. And we have to be totally prepared. I mean, right now, the state is going to be providing the PPE to the town, and the deliveries are supposed to start next Tuesday. And that's in addition to any of the resources that the chief might currently have. And there is a list which I could provide, but I know it's been published on the New Hampshire votes with, for example, how many masks, there's, everything from the K95 masks to surgical masks to pens, pencils, gowns, sneeze guards and whatever. And I've been working with Jeannie and AMI Graphics on a sneeze guard, which will be placed in front of the ballot box, and that should be hopefully ordered soon. And I think from everything I can possibly do, I am working to try to make sure that we're totally prepared, but I don't want to do this in a vacuum, and I don't want or need anyone from the select board or anyone else, as a matter of fact, later saying, well, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that? So I think we need to get some general consensus, and I want to work with everyone that I can, but we also need to be able to get together. And it would appear that if we're going to have a large number of people involved, we may need to do this as a virtual session, which I guess would be publicly online.
Okay, well, I would be available to you at any time you needed me, for whatever that's worth, sir. And let me know when the meeting is.
The last thing that is, there's always going to be a question of anyone who might show up at the polls who might say, it's my constitutional right to vote, and I refuse to wear a mask, therefore you must yada, yada, yada. And part of the issue that came up today on the meeting with the Secretary of State, they said, well, make sure that you check with your local attorney. And I think it was a consensus amongst the moderators that I communicated with today. It shouldn't necessarily be every local attorney, because when you start looking down the road with how many cities and towns we have, how many different opinions might come out of that, versus simply requiring or asking the Secretary of State's office and the Attorney General to actually come up with and make a decision relative to those kinds of issues. For example, one of the issues that came up today was when they said, well, if someone refuses to wear a mask, then maybe you need to set up a tent outside. And if it's a tent outside, is it one of those without sides? You have to have a table. And if you have a table, so someone who's not going to wear a mask could vote outside. Now you have to deal with staff, meaning ballot clerks, as well as an assistant town clerk, who might then be required to go out. Anyone who votes outside may not necessarily be in the voting area. If we do curbside voting, then everyone involved with that would require an absentee ballot, which means they would then have to, sitting in their car, fill out an application for an absentee ballot. I could go on and on and on about all of the intricacies involved in this, but I don't want to bother taking all this time tonight to explain all these issues, but this is all real. And we are running out of time. We've got approximately a little over 4 weeks before voting begins. And we need to let the public know so that if they really are uncomfortable, that they can get that absentee ballot and get that in the mail before we have issues with the postal system. I'm done.
Is there any other questions for Mr. Mitchell? Jeannie?
While Chuck is here, I would ask the selectmen to approve he's asking for 2 sneeze guards. He's been working with Garrett at Amy Graphics, I think it is. And I think they've decided on the 2 sneeze guard stands that Chuck needs and the cutout appropriate fourth voting machine. Is that correct? Chuck, you settled on what it is you need?
Yeah, I am getting back to Garrett with the exact specifications, the model that I think he probably copied you with late afternoon today. Showed the sneeze guard going all the way to the floor. I don't need it quite that low. And the other one, I can adjust the measurements, but I will get that back to you. But at this point, apparently the cost is going to be the same. So I would ask your approval or support the approval of requesting for 2 sneeze guards. I want to have these placed in front of the ballot box so that as people bring in their ballots and place them into the AccuVote machine, that they are not touching the machine itself, and also offers protection for the moderator or assistant moderator who is then behind the ballot box.
So they're approximately 195 apiece. These sneeze guards would be reimbursable through municipal relief funds, as I understand it. So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Question. Do these have guaranteed delivery by election day?
Yeah, Chuck and I have both been talking with Garrett to make sure that, and we have to order them soon to make sure that happens. Right, Chuck?
Yeah, Garrett actually put together a model today, and he said he could get them available within 1 to 2 weeks from as soon as we ordered them.
Any other questions?
Seems kind of pricey. I haven't seen anything.
In your email.
Where?
I sent everyone the information.
Should be in there.
Sneeze guards yesterday,
On
The one
sneeze
that I
guard.
asked and
Your attachment.
12:57 yesterday. I'm sorry, yeah, yes.
so on the 5th,
Yeah. There's a, right before it, there's a email from Gail, draft minutes review, then the next one is sneeze guards. The one after that is finance, public works department, state memo.
And then he would cut a hole in it, pass through.
so a frame with a sheet of plexi. Yeah, for $200.
Well, it's something I know Chuck and I talked about having DPW do it, but we know the DPW is these days in terms of being understaffed, so it's, yes, it's $195 for 2. And we'll have them.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? The motion passes unanimously.
Reimbursement.
One other item while Chuck is on the line. In your, I believe I emailed it to you and it should be in your folder. He asked for you to approve the inspectors of the election. He provided 4 names. You all get that
I
email?
did not see that.
I did. And because the Democrats nominated 3 people, but the Republicans nominated none, we have 4 separate vacancies, correct, Chuck?
Yeah, well, it's not that we have a certain number of vacancies so much as that we do need to fill the other positions. And I've got 4 people, in fact, that have been poll workers in the past. Most of them are Republicans. I believe at least one of those is an independent. And according to the Secretary of State's office, independents can actually be on the polls as well. It's the state is usually suggesting there's always at least one Republican and one Democrat, or an even number of Republicans, Democrats as ballot clerks. However, there is no particular party affiliation required for other poll workers who might be greeters or whatever. So at this particular time and point, the biggest issue that we're going to be facing is making sure that we have sufficient number of people. And these additional 4 people right now, at least 3 of those 4 have already gotten back to me as a willingness to work at the election, at least under the current conditions.
Okay, I don't have the names in front of me. Would
Mr.
someone like
Moderator,
to?
I'd like to make a motion that we go with, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that we go with the moderator's suggestion of the 4 ballot clerks.
Those names are Jackie Rushlow, Sandra Marshall, Kelly Sedgley, and Jan Land.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anybody that has any discussion? Hearing none. All those who are in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. There is no opposition. The motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
I would like to, just before I end up, we'll try to get back to the select board in particular, and try to set up a meeting. I'm thinking within the next week of trying to get together a group of people so that we can start discussing more on the logistics. The moderators are meeting with the Secretary of State weekly. The supervisors of the checklist right now are meeting with the Secretary of State's office, not quite weekly yet, but it might be. And I know that the town clerks are also meeting with the Secretary of State's office, that meaning primarily Dave Scanlon and Bud Fitch, because the secretary himself is generally not available for these meetings. And hopefully we can start getting some actual decisions out of the Secretary of State's office so that we can start moving forward with a concrete plan as compared to what if, this, that, and the other thing. So I will get back to you, and I will promise to keep you well informed.
Thank you very much, Chuck.
Any
Okay,
other questions before I leave?
Don Scanlon?
Yeah, thanks, Chuck, for all the work. I'm sure you have many hundreds of hours by this time on this. You know, us as selectmen have not been directly involved with you a lot, but we have good faith in you, and that you've been very thorough on it. That's given us a lot of confidence. So we stand behind you and appreciate all the side work you're doing there.
I will add one last thing today, which is one of the towns, and I believe it was Derry, who said that they are having enough trouble getting ballot clerks and people who might have to deal with people without wearing face masks, that they're now paying their poll workers $30 an hour. I just threw that out just so that you have that information. Thank you.
Is
Oh,
that a
no, thank you.
But hold on one second. Is that a reimbursable expense now if we do that?
I don't believe that's reimbursable from the federal government, no.
Okay.
Anything else from Mr. Mitchell? Thank you ever so much, Chuck. Apparently, he'd had enough. Okay, the next thing on my list is the Selectmen's report. John Scanlon, you're up.
Well, not too much to say here. Already covered a lot of things. The Tilton School will be reopening, and they're doing it over a mini think it's 4 weeks, so before they get all their students up there. And they're keeping them very confined to their specific categories and keeping them out of the public. And they're very concerned about that. They have great plans in place. So, and some people might be interested in that because we've heard about the colleges and college towns making rules. Everybody in town has to wear masks, but the Tilton School is very good about keeping their students on campus. And at this point, keeping them pretty much in their dorms and separate areas.
Okay,
That's it.
next up is Pat.
Thank you. Joe, I have a few things on the list, and one of them is timesheets. So I don't know if anybody else has been paying attention to the timesheets, but on our part-time timesheets, part-timers, okay. Our part-timers are, I don't have. Some of them are writing down the hours. It's not about the person now, it's about the timesheet. Okay? Some of them are writing down the hours that they actually work. Some are salaried, some are not, some are hourly. And some are writing down just on call. I think that we had discussed this quite a long time ago, and we had decided that we need these to be filled out. And I think for a couple of reasons. One is, if that person ever left and we needed to fill that position, there's no way to know, no way to look back on that position and say this job is actually 10 hours a week or 15 hours a week, or, you know, what does it entail? Does it entail call outs in the middle of the night, or is it an 8 to 5 job, or is it what kind of position is it? And there's no data to fill that out. We have no clue. And going forward, we really need some type of information from these jobs and these departments. And that's how we get the information, is mostly from their timesheets. So going forward, I think that it's really important that we direct our department heads and our to have the employees and part-timers, all the part-timers, to fill out their timesheets respectively to exactly what they're working on. Because, you know, and then the upswing to that is that if we see that they're working way too many hours, on the other hand, we need to adjust that. We need to adjust what they're doing. Maybe it shouldn't be a part-time.
Okay, well, so is there something about this that specifically that you want to address?
So in the pile, it's the last one really, where it just is nothing, absolutely zero. Boom, salary, boom. We need to change that, because I'm afraid in a year or maybe two, that this position is open. We have no data to fill that position whatsoever. And that's going to be on us, because we're not going to know, is it a 10-hour-a-week job, a 20-hour-a-week job? Is it 50? How do we know? Is it in the afternoons? Is it mornings? Or is it, you know, when are these hours? We have no way to tell that. Unless we have the data from the actual person that's working with it.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. We have a procedure. We have a time card, and everybody fills it out according to their hours, with the exception of one employee.
Correct.
Can we please get the one employee to comply?
That's what the board would like.
John?
And I agree with Pat, that, you know, we need to know what the job entails. I think we discussed this about a year and a half ago.
We did.
And I don't remember what it was, but I sort of remember it was that there are like brief calls, like 15 minutes here and
Mhm.
10 minutes there that come in all times of day or night. So how would we ask for this person to?
Office hours at bare minimum. I mean, they're in that office, I know. So I don't see where that's listed here. Just as a
I
for
would say at
instance.
least office hours, bare minimum.
So they put their office hours and then say in on call for all other. hours.
Yeah. I understand they're on call.
One of those timesheets that you have in front of you has office hours in the morning, 3 days a week.
Mhm.
Field.
Yeah, it goes out on call.
So on that one, if he has no field work that day, what happens? He just go home and mark the time as field work?
Maybe he works, I don't know.
That's, if we're gonna get down to it, that'd be another question. Because she can easily say, my office hours are this, put it down like she used to, and be covered. But if she's getting calls, as John says, there's only 3 time ins and outs. If she gets 5 calls at various times in the day, where does she put it on the timesheet?
Probably in the remarks, maybe, I don't know.
Well,
It really doesn't, not,
It might be one, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Joe.
No, go ahead.
It might be one of those things to talk to the employee and ask them how we can more accurately track what the job entails.
we're not
And-
trying
and-
to, right,
Yeah,
not about nitpicking, it's really trying to get assessing what the actual position is about. Really,
because we might find that somebody is actually, although their salary might be working a lot more hours, could be working 100 hours a week.
I tend to believe that that's the case, so.
Oh, I do too.
I have a question.
Eric.
On this one that's colored, I just noticed, and I don't know if this is a violation, but the amount of hours worked, I don't know. Again, I work in the private sector, and if you go to work, you're paid a certain number of minimum hours.
The colored one is salary,
It doesn't matter is this person salary?
yes. Part-time salary.
Yeah.
On the bottom right.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Never mind.
Okay, next,
Okay,
moving on.
yeah, are you all set?
So, no.
All right.
So I was asked to write a COVID protocol for the senior center bus. And I've done that, and in a second I will pass that out. But in doing that, I came across the CDC requirements for the bus loading, unloading the bus. One of the requirements were a shield. The driver must wear a shield during a loading, unloading a wheelchair and securing the wheelchair within the van because you're within that 6-foot barrier. So a mask and a shield, and we had to put that in the protocol. And I said, well, geez, we don't have any shields. So I asked Jeannie. Jeannie said, well, geez, we should call the chief because he could probably get some Homeland Security. And within 20 minutes, the chief's wife called me and said, I have somebody that's interested in acquiring, giving you some shields. And it's a student from Bishop Brady, Angelica Whitney. She is actually in the robotics team from Bishop Brady, and she actually made shields. So her and her brother, it's kind of like a team effort, and she's donated over 5,000 to nonprofits in her area. And so I thought that was very deserving of a story. So Donna came up this morning and we took the van up to the senior center. So that's going to be next week. But it's always nice to, with all that's going on in the world, to hear something good with students doing good things. So she actually donated 20 to us, so now we have
Oh, my goodness.
on the bus dedicated to our drivers. But take one and pass it down. We've all asked for the, Jeannie, do you have one?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a draft. Jeannie's been a lifesaver looking at it and kind of helping me along with a couple of things that I've forgotten along the way, but it's about the mask, it's about the drivers must wear a shield securing the passenger in the wheelchair, and then it's the, go ahead,
Do you have a thermometer so you can take their temperatures?
yes.
Good.
Yeah. No, that probably, I'm gonna write that, 'cause that probably should be here, because it's a bus driver. So transporting, under transport, I'll put that in, thank you. We actually took the bus out last night and I did it first. So
Where'd you get the 99 degrees for the no passenger?
COVID, the CDC,
All right.
100.4.
Huh? That's the number I was thinking it was 100.4.
So there's two different, I did write it. Driver must take the temperature of each passenger. So we do have, I do have that there. So I have to correct that, Peter, thanks.
Okay.
It is in the CDC. I had two different places. One, I had borrowed some information from CAP and Granite State Independent Living, and then CDC. CDC says it's 100.4. So I changed the bottom one, but not the top. So these are the questions that we ask for anyone getting on the bus. And then transporting it, passengers must practice social distancing. So we put the first one in the back. If we only have one passenger, then we'll put them up front. If we have two, then we'll start from the back and then down. The bus can only be 50% capacity. And when the passenger leaves the bus, the driver will wipe down the seats and the handrail with the disinfectant before any other passenger gets on the bus. Because they may change. If they go to the grocery store, come back, they may change seats. So we're wiping the bus down in between. And that's that. So with your approval, we can put this into policy land.
I just have two questions. I think on the back of the page, the travel 14 days outside, I believe the state of New Hampshire expanded that to include other states. So just to let you know, I believe they've included New York, New Jersey, Hawaii, in case you went there.
So if we just said outside of New England,
Well, it's been changing, so it may tighten back up. Who knows?
So just because the way it reads right now, have you traveled in the prior 14 days outside of New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, or Rhode Island? So if you travel outside of those places,
right?
are you saying they've now?
I believe they include New York and New Jersey now.
So it says outside of New York and New Jersey?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because their numbers have come down. It's changing, but I believe, I don't know how to say this properly, but in Lincoln today, it's the time of year, and a lot of people are coming from New York and in New Jersey, and they are okay to travel without having to quarantine for 14 days. So my other question, just because I have not seen the bus, but you're going to put 20 shields on the bus, or a number of shields on the bus, and they're going to be shields for each driver will be in the bus. Is that where they're going to be stored?
So we have, right now, we have 4 drivers. So the shields for the 4 drivers are going to be secured on the bus with their name tag.
But how are they gonna be secure? I'm just worried about if they have to make evasive action, the other shields that aren't being used are gonna use. Okay. Okay.
Thank you for asking that. The others will be in a box, and if we need them, we have them.
This works for me.
Peter had a question,
Peter?
Yeah, on that 14-day prior, in the prior 14 days, have you traveled to an area that is currently under restrictions or something along that? So as it changes from day to day, week to week, you don't have to say, well, this is what it says on your form here.
John?
Brief form, before loading the scanned questions. You want to put, yeah, before loading questions, you've got all that. It's down there. But it doesn't say what to do if they say yes to that.
They don't get the look.
But it should say if any of these questions are answered in the affirmative, then they do not want a bus.
Yeah, I mean, that's understood kind of by this, but it should say specifically.
Then it won't be up to
It
the
should.
decision of a person who's volunteering to make that
Yeah,
decision. Well,
driver's
yeah,
call.
but it doesn't say you can't get on the bus. Can, yeah, they did, but they're not real bad. Any of these conditions.
Got it. Okay, I'll make those changes and bring it back. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Meanwhile, we're still okay to run it, right? Okay,
I would say so.
right now it's
Who are the drivers?
me right now until September 1st. We have one going to the medical cutoff August 15th, and it will be gentleman that's going to volunteer.
Outstanding.
So we have consensus from the board.
Yes.
We have
Use
consensus.
the bus.
Use the
Yes.
bus now.
That's a yes.
All right, with this in place. The,
With the protocol, so Gail knows what we're talking about with the Tilton Senior Center bus COVID protocol.
right, now make the changes that we talked about here, and then we'll make the official approval next week. All three changes. So with that being said, we took the bus out to the Wednesday night crew just as a maiden voyage, just kind of see if it would work, not work, whatever. And it actually was seamless. We had 2 passengers from Tilton. And I dropped him off at 6 o'clock, and then I went back and picked him up at 9 o'clock when it closed. And they were just really happy. There was a total of 13 people at the music. So it was not, full capacity, but they had their dinner outside at the pagoda. And then they came in and had their music inside. They wiped everything down afterwards. So once the passengers left, I wiped everything down, parked the bus. So it had Lysol and paper towels and everything with me on the bus. So it was nice, and people really enjoyed having the bus and the availability to have it. So I think it's really going to open up a lot of people's lives, being able to go to and from there. Was one other thing. So I did talk with Kevin and came up with a way to be able to do Wednesday evenings where the Public Works is not available. So I'm going to get a key to be able to go into the gate and come out. For the driver that will be kept on the bus. We cannot park it. I was thinking of getting it earlier, parking it at the municipal parking, because that's what I did yesterday, so that it's not, it will not fit. So you'll take up 4 parking spaces, parking parallel to the guardrail, and it's just not going to work. So we worked out a resolution to that. That's about it. So I think, I don't want to steal Jeannie's thunder, but this is this time of the year, and I saw our lien list. That's our tax deeding levy. And as you know, every year I go out and knock on the doors. So if anybody wants to go with me, knock on these doors. As of August 20th at 4:15, we deed all of these properties here if they don't pay. And Cindy's been good enough to write on here. They've been on the list every year, and sometimes they pay us. Some are regulars. If anybody wants to go with me, you're welcome.
Okay, is that it, Pat?
Just a question for Pat.
Please.
Pat, just for clarification, the senior center, is it now completely open or is it open for Wednesday nights? I've been getting questions, so I just.
Okay, so the senior center is open for Wednesday night music, 50% capacity only. In Friday evening, the AA group, there's about 10 of them, 10 to 15. They will start, I think it's either the second week of August or the third, and I believe it's the third week of August they want to start. And it's not open during the day right now for CAP. I asked Cindy today if CAP was going to open in August, because they thought maybe it would be August that they would start doing the meals. And she said it didn't look like this month that they would be opening for meals during the day or programs. So right now, the senior center, as it is, seniors would be going in. We do have 2 programs that are running in the evening. And then the Lockmere, if you're going to use it one day in the month, you'll be there.
Well, that would be a yes if it were open. Up to this point, the building has been closed. And I think we had a communication problem about Wednesday night, because I even made the suggestion that maybe we talk about having the music again. And there was, concerns and questions, and we talked about having a plan in place. And actually, Emily was going to come down with the plan last Thursday, but something happened. No, we didn't have a meeting last Thursday. Thursday before, but something happened. So we didn't get to see the plan in advance, although I like the plan. That seemed like it was a communication thing on that. And now I think if we're going to open for the AA people, another good thing that we should actually vote to open the building for those things. Because right now the building's closed.
Well, you either open the building or you close the building. Once the building is open, then it's up to the senior center executive committee as to what goes in and what doesn't go in. So.
And I'm sorry, I just want to point out, because I went through all the minutes and we haven't formally voted. I'm opening.
Well, okay, then that's a miscommunication on my part. I'll own that one. I have no problem owning that.
I don't think it's just.
I just want to open it now.
That's okay, but I just want to be clear on this, that every single person that goes in there and every single entity that goes in there is under the purview of the Senior Center Executive Committee, not the Board of Selectmen. You open the building and then it's up to us. It's like kind of like Riverfront Park. It's under the purview of the Parks Commission. So, the AA committee came to me and I thought you had already opened it because you had asked about the music. And I said, well, yeah, we have music. So, okay, fine. So they're not there yet. They're coming. And I told them, what the protocol was and everything. So they're adhering to the protocol, and the fiddler's not there
So
yet.
is there a motion that we can just move on from
I'd
this?
like to make a motion that we open the senior center under the supervision of the senior executive committee.
I'll second that.
All right.
Is there any further discussion?
Okay, Gail and Jeannie is official.
Is there any
We didn't
further
vote yet.
discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Is there any opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
Okay, and just one other question. So for the, will you be using at the, I'm trying to be thorough. You guys want me to be. Will you be using the ULB sprayer there on Friday? I mean, how do you plan to use that at all, or do you have your own protocol for cleaning up after these meetings? That's just all I want.
Right now, we have our own plan to clean up after the meetings. The AA meeting person that's in charge is actually a cleaner, professional cleaner. So I feel certain that that will happen. If it's not, it will be brought to my attention.
Perfect.
So
Great.
I feel certain about that.
Thank you.
I don't know daily when Cap comes in. I think that they would probably want to talk to you with that. But they're not going to be there till September.
Okay, is
Thanks.
that it, Pat?
That is it.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, a couple months ago, I think I asked about creating a Google Doc for hawkers and peddlers. Looking at it today, we have one for this season. The one that never shows, it's the one for Home Depot. So I don't see Chick-fil-A added to the list. I know since our previous meeting, they've been selling hot dogs over by Fonzie's, fairly frequent. So the other question is, was that hawkers and peddlers list shared with the PD so they know which ones are licensed, which ones aren't, so they know which ones to check in on?
I don't know that, and I will find out.
Okay.
So your question is there's a Google Doc, and should all the hawkers and peddlers, or they should show up? in the
I had
Google
asked
Doc?
for her to create one. She created it, shared it. We've got
Who's she?
Gail,
Okay,
Hut Diggity Dog.
okay.
And our previous meeting, we were under the impression that Chick-fil-A is doing the final. I'm assuming they have,
They
but
have.
I haven't seen it
Okay.
on this list. I have the chief shaking his head, so the officers have no idea who's done, who isn't, so it makes it even harder on them to enforce, so.
Chick-fil-A has, I asked Gail that, I think it was yesterday, and she
But
confirmed they have.
there's been at least one or two on the Laconia Road stretch with nothing.
And I asked Gail about that, so we're only aware of that one
Okay,
and Chick-fil-A.
okay. So that's that item.
Still Peter's show here.
Number 2, third Tuesday of the month, who's meeting where? Because it seems the sewer commission's getting pushed out.
Out of what?
Meeting, we've been meeting here for over a decade, and now I've got ZBA kicking us out.
In town hall? Or
Up here.
this particular room?
We moved up here when they were downstairs, and they moved up here, now they want to kick us back. I don't know, it's
Isn't it because all the files and everything came back up here and they're,
on both parties, yes,
and they have hearings and stuff?
and we do too. And they don't meet every third Tuesday of the month. They meet up when necessary. We meet every third Tuesday and more.
You have a question or comment there?
Discussion, sorry.
No.
So
Well, my first thing I would think of is that the ZBA is a town board, and the sewer commission is a commission.
Is a governing body.
Yep, you betcha. ZBA is a town board.
So is the sewer commission. It's a different governing body, but it's within the town of Tilton.
Yeah, and you can meet in the town of Tilton.
Just let us know. I'm just trying to see where the board's at.
Um,
The sewer commission's trying to find a resolution to this, so just tell me.
Me, this ZBA can meet up here if they want. John?
Have the two chairmen talked to each other?
No, because the chairman, I don't think schedules for the ZBA.
So maybe the two chairmen can talk to each other and, you know, if there's going to be a big hearing, it might be necessary for them to be up here, but, and if sewer is going to have something big. But if they, you know, I think the two chairmen should see if they can work it out. If not, can convene.
Is it my understanding that the ZBA only meets when there are hearings?
That, I believe that's correct. If there's nothing on the docket, there's nothing on the
So
docket.
that they would need the space because downstairs isn't large enough now because they have it's changed.
I served on the ZBA and I never saw more than 7 or 8 people.
But the
Now
way-
that's a big one in ZBA land.
So the way they have it configured now, it wouldn't, the downstairs would not be large enough.
Not with social distancing.
And it was also pointed out to me that as we're in COVID right now, this is the only room that is set up for virtual meetings. And the ZBA has,
Legal, right?
yeah, they've got to have a room because they've got to have the go-to meeting technology.
Well, this is a hard one.
Chairman, I
Yes.
believe, from what I've heard, I believe the ZBA may have a case coming up that may be controversial and have lots of participation, more than your 7 or 8.
Well, 8 is all you could get up here. So the rest of them will have to be on the screen anyway.
So would a compromise be what John just suggested is that if, I guess the compromise is that you look at the meetings, if you've got a big meeting. I mean, at this point, ZBA has a hearing, they've got to use the space unfortunately because they've got to have virtual technology because we don't have it downstairs. But once we come out of COVID, is it, and the two talk, and if the sewer commission has a big hearing, and ZBA doesn't, ZBA goes downstairs or just reschedule some other time. I don't know. It seems to me like there should be able to be some. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we meet up there when we have our public hearings while ZBA's here.
But that doesn't get you in on the technology.
I understand
either.
that.
This is a hard one.
I've been on sewer commission since 96, and this is the last year or so. It's the only time it's ever been a problem. We always met, did our thing, out of the way, wherever they wanted to put us. Part of the reason we moved up here is that we've been over there for decades.
Oh, yeah, as long as I know. Well, can we get the chairman? Who's the chairman of the sewer commission?
I am.
You are?
Oh.
Can you, gee, I don't know, man.
Well, what about having the sewer administrator and the land use coordinator work it out? They're the ones who have to schedule everything, right?
And they would know if you had something coming up with lots of people coming.
We should.
If anybody would, I would imagine it would be them. So let's give them a shot at it, and whoever needs the room gets the room, I guess. We don't have but the one.
So then when you have 2 public hearings, what do you do?
I don't know, set up one right after the other, maybe. I don't know.
It's gonna be a tough one.
Change the date.
Depends on when, it's rare right now that the ZBA is having hearings.
Yeah. Although they had a hearing about the project up here.
Right, Planet Honda.
And they have one coming up.
And they have one coming up.
I don't know if it's in August or not, but
No, there's one coming up. Isn't that what kicked us off again? I thought there was one coming up.
There is, yes. I'm not sure what it is. I'm hearing a potential controversial one. I know of one that came to sewer that we said go to ZBA first because of controversy. So I don't know if it's that one.
There should be one coming up, the Autumn Drive one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trying to dance around the flowers there.
I don't dance.
It's all public, so.
The Tilton two-step.
Yeah, well, that's gonna be the Samberton.
So
Yeah.
just so I'm clear, is that what we've come to as far as the resolution, the sewer administrator and the land use coordinator will work it out right now?
I guess that's what the board wants.
I don't see any other
Figure
solutions.
something out. And see if they can figure it out. If not,
We'll try again,
flip a coin, something.
something.
Have to do something.
Okay, anything else?
Yes, I guess I'm a little disheartened to see I'm asked to sign a payment that's $4,000 over the estimate, and I have no explanation. So at this point, I'm not signing the Cedar Street payment, R&D payment. You look at what the estimate was from the contract and what we're paying, there's a $4,000 difference. I have no information.
Could that have something to do with the dig up and repave?
So he explained that to us a couple of times before he was here. I don't think what it was.
It was the repaving of the water, the drain.
No. That was the $8,000. This is on top of it now. The 8,000 was months ago. This is today.
So it's 4,000 more.
It's
so
4,000
actually
over what they,
12,000
it's
over
four,
the estimate?
well, it's 4,000 more than the wearing course estimate, looking quickly at the spreadsheet set up for bid results.
Was that for redigging of London Ave?
I don't know,
We
I thought when Kevin was here, the question would get asked, but it wasn't.
Right. No.
So,
If you want, I'll set a list, get it to you to go through. I'll carve in the board.
If we're gonna hold that one, we hope, all right. I'll ask you later.
That's it for me, Joe.
Okey dokey. I'm up next. Only thing I've got is we had, almost, I was gonna pass, but I really should say that we had a delightful concert last week. The weather was great. Didn't rain, went all around us, and the music was good. It's supposed to be beautiful this Sunday. Come on down. I don't know who's playing. But all the bands are good. They keep switching them around on me. I thought they were doing the Beatles last week, but it turned out to be Karen Morgan and the Pony Express. So far, so good. We're still having problems with people parking in front of they didn't park up to the handicapped porta potty and then parked right in front of the handicapped porta potty.
Can we get some barricades from DPW if you need to box it out then?
I'm sure we can do something. I will get in touch with Kevin and see if he can drop something off or leave something for me to pick up or something, so we
That's a
can
great idea.
rectify that, sure.
Spike Strip.
Well, they gotta come down on Friday to do if they deliver the barricades in, somebody will throw them in the river. That's why all the picnic tables are bolted down. And that's it for me. Eric, you're up last,
Hey,
but not least.
save the best for last. I just relating on what Peter said about the hot diggity dog. They are our hawkers and peddlers for Home Depot, but they don't have a hawkers and peddlers. I don't know if it has to be address specific, but the hot diggity dog is the one that we signed for June for Home Depot, but it's also the same person that's on in front of, what was it, Fonzie's?
Fonzie?
So,
Okay, I wasn't sure.
yeah, it's the same person.
They got it.
I
Okay.
just Googled it, because I actually remember seeing the sign,
Mhm.
and I just went and looked at the document that we signed, it's the same company.
Same guy?
Because he has a sign, he did have a sign in front of the vent area, like in their multiple pointed across the street, so.
Mhm.
So can you have hawkers and peddlers in 2 different addresses?
I don't think you need one to have, if you have hawkers and peddlers in town, then you have a license to hawk and peddle. Wherever you happen to be, I guess.
Yeah, if you have an ice cream truck, do you have to list every road you're gonna be on? or-
Oh, don't go down that road. Don't go down that road. Don't go down that road.
All right.
The, at Salmon Run, is there a way that we can have the banner removed from the split rail fence? It's faded beyond recognition. So is there just a way to have that removed?
Mr. Mitchell would be the
I
one to
know
talk to.
Talk to the liaison.
And John,
Tell them no.
Okay.
To get another one.
Well, no, we have a wooden sign up the fence a little bit. That's it's a nice car sign, but this is like, it's beyond its life. So
Yeah.
It looks trashy.
Sure.
Since Peter brought up Cedar Street, I'm gonna bring up Cedar Street. Just, I guess it's a nitpicking thing, but the actual intersection of High Street and Cedar Street, there was work done that went across High Street that was not paved when they paved, and also there was a sidewalk on High Street that went around the corner onto Cedar Street that was dug up and never repaved. It's dirt. So I don't know if that's included, who's responsible for repairing that, but it's not.
so it's not complete.
Well, I don't know. It's technically High Street. So it's like they went to a stop sign on Cedar Street, picked up their equipment, walked across the street and dropped it and paved the rest of Cedar Street. So, but there's pavement that wasn't repaired. There's a sidewalk not repaired. So it's just a
What company
It's
was it
there.
that did the paving?
R&D.
R&D.
R&D. I'll have to remember that.
But it was, when they ground up the road originally, they never ground that section up. So when the water department was putting a line in, they extended because they connected the line to the line in High Street. And I believe maybe it's the water department should have that final coat put on. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure we can find out.
That is all I have.
Okay. Wow. Okay, Jeannie Forster, you're up.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. So you have my report, I have a few different action items on my weekly update. Liberty Utilities Incentive Offer, I had reached out to the utility company to see if there are any rebates we might be eligible for constructing the new police station. They worked with our construction management, and Gary Boudreau came back and let me know just recently that we're eligible for Liberty Utilities gas efficiency incentive in the amount of $14,631.60. So I'm asking you to authorize me to complete that paperwork for the incentive in order to reserve this funding for us. It does not obligate us in any way, and I had Gary Boudreau and Milestone look at it. Everything that they're talking about as an incentive, we are doing it at the new building. So it's not like we're doing it new or different above and beyond, but we're doing what they would like us to do. And for that, we would get that funding.
Yay.
So moved.
Second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Thank you. Second item is a Small Town America Civic Volunteer Award. I'd like to submit a name that I'd like to keep confidential, obviously, but you all see it in your note for this award. This award honors 100 extraordinary public service volunteers in localities under $5,000. And the top 3 nominees would receive a cash award of either $10,000, $7,500, or $5,000. The deadline to apply is August 15th, and I would like you to give me the go ahead to submit this name.
Make a motion that we approve Jeannie submitting that name.
Second,
John?
Is that name, not that this person is not deserving, but is that person volunteer all the time?
For lots of it.
Couldn't hear what he said.
Yes,
sorry.
if they were actually a volunteer per se, and
I
yeah,
would say yes.
and they have a body of work
Yes.
that stretches back a long time. Okay, so I think we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? There are none. Please go forward.
Great, thank you. The next item is the UNH capstone project. Civil and environmental engineering departments of UNH require graduating seniors to participate in a capstone project. I did solicit some ideas from our DPW and sewer administrator, and after I looked at kind of their ideas, I thought the one that was of most interest is this infiltration, this II study through the sewer commission. The study would determine groundwater getting into our municipal system through damaged pipes or manholes. The study, according to the sewer administrator, would be optimal due to the ongoing flow needed in projects and could save Tilton money in the future. If you gave approval, I would work with the sewer administrator in completing that application. The deadline is August 25th. And my understanding is, since we have a sewer commissioner here, my understanding is that she did have this conversation with all of you just to make sure you were okay with it.
Okay.
So I've asked you to approve that.
We need a motion to that or a consensus?
So moved.
second,
Now, there you have it. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, Gail.
Thank you. Next one, 7 to Save nomination for Tilton Island Park Bridge. I'd like to submit the bridge for a nomination. Doesn't bring you any money by submitting the nomination, but if we're named as a 7 to Save, it will assist me when I write future grants for funding for repair and maintenance of the bridge, because it's been identified as a significant historical resource that we want to save. So I'd like your approval to do that.
I approve.
Second.
So that's a motion.
Oh, motion and a second? Went right over my head.
Still keep
Okay,
Leave it like that.
let's expand this out into actual motion. Yes, okay, vote. All right. John, would you like to make a motion?
Make a motion that we seven save for the Tilton Island Park Bridge.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay then.
Great, thank you. Next item is a letter that was drafted for your signature. Is it in? I guess I didn't give it to you, it's here. But back in February of 2020, you signed a memo authorizing the acceptance of a forfeiture vehicle. The DEA is asking for some additional documentation or just an additional confirmatory letter from the board. This letter, the language was provided to me by the captain and the chief. The chief is here to answer any questions if you want, and I'd like you to look at this. Again, you've already approved it.
This is the vehicle that we already talked about, right?
Yeah, it's just, they need
Okay.
one more additional. If no one has any questions while that's being passed around, I can continue. All right. So Thank you. So Vicky Virgin Food Drive at Market Basket. Gail wanted to find out if this is something you'd like to try to do this year, and if so, I can reach out to Market Basket and see if this is something that they would even entertain.
What's it normally held?
Well, Pat and I have been, Pat started and like I've been helping out and whatever for last several years. And we do pretty good with that, right?
It fills the pantry. Last year, I didn't want to take the lead, and Michelle wanted to take the lead. And they said if we go ahead and reserve the spaces, they would go ahead and take the lead now. So we can help out.
Yeah.
By all means, we can volunteer. It fills their pantry.
Eric?
Stuff the senior bus.
Stuff the bus. I like that.
That's what? Stuff the bus.
We can deliver.
No, to put all the food on the bus, and this way it eliminates.
Are you going to clean my bus?
There is a bus cleaning protocol.
Protect my bus. No, I'm kidding.
It's a great idea.
So you want me to follow up to see if their basket is out this year with everything that's going on?
Yeah, and I think.
They still have the box inside, I think, for donated food, so they.
Yes, they
might-
do. And, right, but we don't know what corporate, it's corporate that's doing it.
Lord.
Right. And we would check with Michelle. If she checks with Michelle to see if she wants to, or I can check with Michelle and see if she wants to. Okay, I'll check with Michelle.
So you're checking with Michelle.
Yes.
Gail doesn't have to.
I'm guessing they need that food more than ever.
More than that.
All right. So
Is this the police here? Is this for the police undercover vehicle?
yes, it's the same thing you approved back in February. It's just an additional information.
I didn't know that Priuses came in pink.
Nice.
It's custom paint.
Yeah.
Custom
I didn't know
paint, buddy.
that the Priuses came in vibrant pink.
Nice. Told you, giving away the secret.
Oh,
Yeah, nah.
No?
Okay, so you've seen my FYIs. If you don't have any questions, I won't go through that. Town hall opening. This week, we had supervisors of the checklist use the downstairs space unbeknownst to us. I reached out and said, my guess is that the selectmen would have no issue with that. However, the selectmen had only identified this space as the space to use. If people are going to use that downstairs space, we need to know about it, one, so that we don't have 15 meetings, and two, so that we can make sure the space is clean.
So we would be back onto the Gail's calendar. Is that correct? The
Yes.
Gail had a calendar with all the various meetings on
And
it.
that's part of it. The fire commission was asked if they could have a meeting on September 1st. So this is just really kind of the last step. And I think now that we have the ULB sprayer and John is doing the spraying, he did it yesterday because the space was used. He did it again this morning because the space was used yesterday. And I'm also thinking that we could have him do it on a daily basis if that's what you would like, because we've got folks coming in the front into the town clerk, tax collector's office, so that they don't have to work it down, we just have them come in every day to spray. So that's my question to you, if you're all okay with that. You know,
As much as I hate it, I think that's what we need to do.
okay. So you are, everyone is okay with us opening up the downstairs meeting space as long as we're disinfecting?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Everybody? Good.
Yep.
And the fire commission wants to have their meeting on September 1st. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Trump sign, just FYI, the letter did go out. certified letter was never picked up, but we heard the board's direction last time, we were doing it. So the sign is still there, we are moving on.
Was the letter returned to us?
Not yet. I checked with Leanne today. No one has signed for it and it has not been returned to us.
Well, if we're taking no action, are we going to notify them we're taking no action, or are we just going to let it sit? My concern is that if they receive a letter, then they start taking their own personal action. As opposed to us rescinding it, so that they wouldn't hire attorneys and start counteractions against us.
Well,
I'd say just let it lie. I'm not going to rescind it. If they choose to pursue, we did nothing wrong. I don't believe we did anything wrong. Because it's a political sign, I wouldn't consider pursuing. But we sent the letter, and maybe they'll just, when they get this thing, they'll just say, we're going to go down and get a permit. I don't even know if there's a fee for the permit for this sign. It's a special permit issued by the Board of Selectmen, apparently. I would never be in favor of charging them money for this permit, but it is in our ordinance. Why, you want to rescind the letter?
Well, my contention is that if the person who received this letter decides to file a lawsuit against the town, that we're on board with it. We never told them that we will not be pursuing.
Fact is, we had a lawyer do the letter, and I'm willing to stand by that. We paid somebody to write that letter. Peter?
Isn't it a moot point if he doesn't pick up the letter because he doesn't
Yes.
know the content? He
Yeah.
can guess, but if he doesn't have it.
And at this point, unless you want to make a motion, we're just spinning our wheels.
No, I guess my point is, if he does pick up the letter and does hire an attorney, we're in for the ride.
Other than
Yep.
the fact that we would probably get a letter from the attorney, we would respond back,
Saying we're not going to pursue it.
It could be costly.
And then maybe we'll address it through the zoning ordinance for signs next time, or not. Jeannie?
so we're not pursuing anything with Trump, we're leaving it as it is.
Well, there are no motions to any other effect.
Okay. So, tree streets. Year ago or so, Officer Gilman came in front of the board, talked about a plan, we worked very diligently about how to solve issues over there. If you recall, it was cutting back the brush so that people could have a line of sight. It was putting the do not parking signs up. He went and talked to residents about parking on the street. And the last piece of it was to stripe the sidewalks so that people would park on it, and he had come to you with a walking man that would be put on the sidewalk so people would know it was a sidewalk. So given the fact that we paid for 14 signs that went up and then came down because residents weren't happy with the signs that came down, before we take that next step, do you as a board, since you did it,
Need 14 signs that went up and came down. What 14 signs
They
came
put
up
up
and
14
down?
no parking here corners.
14 that the board approved to go up.
I think the location of some of them was the issue. Some were like 2 feet from the corner.
The board approved it, so.
No, I know, but
So
The chief approved it. That was the issue. Board did not approve it.
I don't think the board should be approving those signs.
Right, that was, so they went out and did this and just went out and did it. Yeah.
No. They they came to you with the plan. I
I remember the plan.
And it had where they were gonna be located, and you want, I'll go back and look at the minutes, but I'm pretty sure the board said, yes, go ahead. And so, in any event, my point in all this is not that before they go that last and final step, do you,
Which is,
to put the painted sidewalks on, because I would foresee that there would be some residents who are not like that. Do you want to have a public meeting like you did with Peabody Street, the speed bump, to get input from the people on the tree streets before we expend the time and the money and the manpower to put it down, just to have people not happy and then have to cover it up?
yeah,
Brings back memories of my first year on the board. This is when it came up. First and foremost, before we do any of that, we need to decide, can we run parking with two-way traffic? On those streets, it's probably no. So then it is, do you guys want parking? We're gonna have to do one way, or do you want two-way traffic? And we've never come to that conclusion. We've got the information from Steve Pernos showing you the different designs. We can look at the roads and then here are the options, and then maybe do a ballot to the people in that area. But these are the ones that'll work. You can have parking, but it's gonna be one way, or it'll be no parking on the street. And then go back with the sidewalks. If we do stripe for the sidewalk, do not put yellow on that, because yellow is supposed to signify your center lane, so.
It's white. They were gonna do white.
Okay, because in the one point we had yellow, I think, marking it.
at one point, though, didn't we, didn't we have an issue with Dicky Paulus on High Street across from where Eric lives with the sidewalks? And it says that where they were parking, they had to park on the sidewalk on that road only because the road is not wide enough in the winter for the plow to come down, right, by saying that? And so he allowed two wheels on the sidewalk. And so now if we go to painting all the sidewalks, then that would be an issue for 5 or 6 houses on that, and that's a little bit of the history on that particular road. I don't think it's an issue with any of the other roads on that particular road because it's so narrow going down the hill, or the plow going up the hill, you can't make that
My recollection
turn.
when this began was that the selectmen were looking for a solution for the tree streets in Australia and came forward with a plan that got approved. And all I'm asking for right now is there's this one final piece. Do you want to go forward?
I'm a yes. I liked it before. I don't know why they took the signs down. They wanted us to do something. We did something. Josh,
So these are official sidewalks that are existing. And what we're talking about is putting a line to signify where the sidewalk is. So that's the question here now, is putting a line where the sidewalk is. And a white line, right?
Correct. And then I think the idea was to have this white walking man, stick figure, to indicate that this is a sidewalk.
do we have to pay extra for that?
It's Kevin. Kevin's already made the
Just get
template.
the stuff.
Kevin was ready to go, and I just said, wait a minute, I just want to go back to this before we start this.
That,
To John's point, High Street is a regular sidewalk halfway on the road. And then there's no sidewalk going the rest of the way. You have to go in the middle, you have to go in the road. It just stops. So it's a sidewalk walk to nowhere. So after you get to the 5 houses, it's just
cuts off. So either you do away with that sidewalk altogether and make it the road, or you allow them that access because you don't have that road. The other roads I have absolutely no issue with, but that one I do, because you cannot have the plows coming from Cedar Street onto High Street, taking a right. They can't make that radius when they make that come around. There's not enough room. That's a huge issue. You're on the sidewalk when you make that turn, am I right?
We're just talking about marking a sidewalk that is existing.
Correct.
We already approved it. This is not something we
did not approve
We
marking
approved
that
the plan, and the last part of the plan was to mark the sidewalk out. Not the walk.
Show me the plan, please, because I
Yeah,
want to see one-way, two-way, parking, no parking, because
No,
we have
did not approve
specific.
the plan, I'm sorry. Mm-mm.
What, that we
Well, it must
talked
have been a
about?
day I was
No,
absent
we
because.
started that we'd put the signs up. I've yet to hear anything on where we're doing, are we allowing parking or not? Because those streets are not built to allow two-way traffic and parking. You can't get emergency equipment through there during the day when people are parked there. And while we do it, we've got the other one over in this part of town. You get it all at once. Base it on road dimensions, base it on a traffic engineer's opinion, and be done with it. That way we've got some science behind it.
We've wasted far too much of our lives on this issue.
You don't
No one
have, there's different roads and different sizes. That's the problem, Joe. Cedar Street is nice.
Take them one at a
and wide open.
time. We don't have to do every one all at once. Just take them one at a time.
Striped Cedar Street, it's wonderful. I mean, you can walk on the sidewalk, it's beautiful. It's got a beautiful sidewalk all the way down the end, that's fine. But the High Street, you're not gonna be able to do it. You could mark, Chestnut Street's not wide enough for two.
There's a
Prospect
sidewalk
Street
there,
is.
we're not gonna mark it? Is it, or is there not a sidewalk there?
You know what, there's asphalt. I wouldn't call it a sidewalk, I'm sorry. I mean, you don't live there, I do.
You know, we need senior bus and the selectmen to take a ride down there, stand there, and look, so we're all looking at the same thing.
Can't fit that many people on the bus.
Social distance.
Is it, how many person
I'm
buses?
so tired of
10.
this.
10-person bus?
I'm just kidding, John.
We gotta go down there. We're gonna have to show up
50%
at it,
capacity
or have
on
a
a 10
hearing,
passenger
or
bus.
do something. We can't just kicking this thing. I do recall us deciding to paint the sidewalks and do all that. I recall it. Other of us do not recall it.
The painting is fine. We've never resolved the parking issue. That's what's still hanging there.
That was never
Okay,
addressed. There were only three things that this board, when Officer Gilman came, there were three things. One had to do with the signs, had to do with cutting back the brush.
Yeah.
That was something you wanted, I remember that. And the third thing was painting the sidewalks.
Brush is all grown back.
Okay, so
Yeah, well, and the DPW is responsible for that, and we are short on DPW.
I get it.
just so that we can decide on this, I'm going to make a motion that we go ahead and paint the sidewalk line and the figures to do that. So I'm making that motion.
Second.
We do that at Morrison Avenue.
Do some sidewalk on Marston. Well, sidewalk, I'm
Well,
making a motion
you
to
don't
go.
live over there.
All right. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Oh, it does. Because you have no idea what's going on over there.
The police officer recommended we put the line. Is that correct?
And he lives in Franklin.
We have a motion and a second on the floor.
And just FYI, I wasn't, it was a problem brought to looking for a solution, which the officer stood up to try to help you resolve. So I just say that because I don't want anyone to be under the impression that he just kind of thought of this on his own. So,
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 discussion,
okay,
under discussion, if you disagree with the motion and you'd like more information to look at it or to supply additional information, I would ask that if somebody feels that way, that they table it until next week with specific information, and then we could do that.
and if I might just say, he was scheduled to come in here several times, so we had to push him back so he could kind of go over everything with you again. But the point of my bringing it up to you tonight was to ask, because what you did with Peabody Street and the speed bumps is you had a public meeting, which went very well because people from Peabody Street actually called in virtually and weighed in to the process. And so that's what I'm suggesting to you before we take this final step. Do we want to have a public meeting where the people from the community, and we can have the officers go out just like they did for Peabody Street and hand out letters saying, we're going to have this public meeting if you want to weigh in. It's a suggestion. Or go ahead and just can't decide.
Mr.
Or do
Chairman,
nothing.
Pat,
I'd like to make an amendment.
okay,
I would like to make a motion to go ahead and paint sidewalk on Cedar Street. And then also alert all the, make available for the other tree streets, a public hearing, because it's been 6 years, to talk about the other tree streets, spruce, pine, maple, and discuss how we're going to move forward on those streets for sidewalks and parking issues.
okay. So we have an amendment to the motion. Does everybody understand the amendment?
I think
Get a second.
amendment's a little broad.
It would basically become the motion.
We're going to do Cedar Street. That way people can see what we're going to do. Cedar Street's wide enough for it to happen.
So
And then,
if,
and then have a public hearing so everybody can come in and weigh in on the parking in sidewalks
on the other streets.
on the other
So
streets.
what I was suggesting is that possibly amend the motion, the painting of the sidewalk, to being only Cedar Street. And then we can get past that part and then go to the next part.
Then make a separate motion for the public
Hey,
hearing.
I'll tell you what, I withdraw my second. So there is no longer a motion on the floor to amend. I just withdrew the second.
So you would withdraw your motion, original motion.
Or we could do that and then amend and send them
And
in
then
and make it whole
put a
motion.
new motion.
Same thing. I'll withdraw it.
Okay, so there's nothing on the floor as far as I can tell except for parquet wood. Would you like to
It's
make
not
a
parquet,
motion?
it's very expensive maple, by the way.
I thought parquet was, never mind, okay. I want to go home.
Just call it cement.
Make a motion that we go ahead and paint the sidewalks on Cedar Street. Only.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any other discussion on the motion? Peter?
I'm trying to figure out why, because if I'm thinking Cedar Street, if I have the sidewalk and I have 2-lane traffic, I can't park vehicles, and I see vehicles as a white Expedition or Explorer usually on the sidewalk up near the corner of High Street. So we can mark the sidewalk. It does nothing to resolve the issue of the parking. So I'm against it until we decide what are we doing for parking and traffic, whether it's 2-way or 1-way.
Is there any other discussion?
The reason why I said Cedar Street is because all along Cedar Street, everybody in that all along Cedar Street has ample parking.
They don't always use it, it's the problem.
Well, that's an enforcement problem. Is there any other discussion about the actual painting? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All those who are opposed?
Let the
nay.
record show, nay.
Selectman Flood votes nay. The motion passes.
Is that uppercase or lowercase?
It'll
We'll
be
see.
lower.
We'll see.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we convene a public hearing for the 3 streets, including Prospect, Linden, and Highland.
Chestnut.
That's a tree. Prospect and Linden and
Well, I think we
trees.
should list West Street,
West Street,
Daniels Drive,
Daniels Drive,
High Street Extension,
High Street Extension.
High Street.
You want everybody to come in here all at once?
Well, they could dial in virtual and talk about the parking and painting of the sidewalks.
Okay, well, it seems unwieldy, but we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on the motion?
Aren't we putting the cart in front of the horse? We've had that meeting 6 years ago, and we've been punting since. We need to go back and say, here are your options. If you want parking, it's going to be one way. If you don't care about not having parking, we can keep it 2-way and go from there. And then we're bringing them information. We're going to be asking it again. We did it 6 years ago and did nothing with it.
In the next 3 minutes, I can think of a dozen people that moved in and moved out within the last year. So that's why I'm saying that there's a lot of new people over here right now.
Okay, I say base it on the science of the traffic engineer and say, here are your options. Now the public hearing, get there, and then I don't care if we put it up to a vote to every taxpayer in the tree streets.
Okie dokie, John.
I think it might be a good idea too, if those streets have sidewalks and we're talking about marking sidewalks, to keep it to marking the sidewalks. We've talked about parking, one-way streets and all that stuff, but we haven't made any progress because no matter what we say on that, there'll always be people who agree and disagree on it. But we might be able to get the sidewalks marked, which will allow people to see where the sidewalks are. And it's a safety thing, keep kids from walking in the roads. So I would like to maker of the motion to consider changing to just marking and setting and so forth.
Technically, we have a motion on the floor.
Part of discussion, Mr. Chair. Well, what do people think about just tabling this and then talking with the officer in getting together with a couple of residents in the area and like a traffic committee, and then bringing it to the board for suggestions?
John?
I'd like to see it go more towards just the marking of that, because I think we've already done that exact same thing twice before, and the recommendations were that marked up by the police officer or the officer. To go public hearing for the exact same thing again, but not make any progress.
We did not have a public hearing, and the public hearing that we had wasn't all inclusive about marking sidewalks and not being able to park on sidewalks, to be honest with you on that. So I don't think that they really know the impact of what's really going to happen. That's my concern. And if the officer was out there along with a couple of people in the area that actually lives in the area to really know what the impact is on Chestnut Street, on High Street Extension, and get a feel for what really are the legitimate problems in that area, we could probably figure out a resolve on that. So that's where I'm coming from.
Is there any other discussion on the motion?
Yes. Yes. Lost my question. Can we have a meeting with Officer Gilman on what he proposes, just to the selectmen? We can put in our 2 cents. Then afterwards, we have a public hearing with the residents of the Tree Street section of Tilton.
Okay.
6 years ago, we hired a traffic engineer to provide us different options to do with the tree streets. We have those options. We've had them all along. Those are what we should be basing it off of. That's the science of the roadside. So we can bring in the officer to look at it and say, out of these options for these streets, what do you recommend? That's fine. But it's like, until we do that, I
Has he
don't.
looked at those? Yes.
Seems like we can talk to the officer prior to any public hearing.
Well, he's already looked at Steve Purnell's. These are his recommendations after he's looked at Steve Purnell's documents, Peter.
So he's saying 2-way traffic with parking and a sidewalk is gonna fit on the tree streets. I don't believe Steve Purnell's document said that.
Can I get some clarification? The recommendation that you bring to us, which we made a motion, amended it, or to be just Cedar Street. But the part that we did not include, what was that?
Well, the part, the latest motion was having parking and painting the sidewalks. Have a public meeting. And I just say, when officer was in here, it was based on his discussions with the board about how they wanted to handle this. And I do recall that Steve Parnell's study was part of the discussion. But I think it was my recollection, and I go back and check the minutes, but my recollection is that the board said, okay, this is what we're comfortable doing, which was in back the bushes, picking up the parking from here to corner, whatever that sign was, and painting the sidewalks.
That could be, but it doesn't even address the parking issue, which is what I'm getting at, which we is at the next part.
I understand that, but
Okay.
that was,
Okay. We can paint the sidewalks, but until we decide how we're addressing parking, they've been painted before and people always parked on them, so we'll see how the enforcement is.
Enforcement. That's enforcement.
exactly, which is again why I'm saying, is this something you really want to do? Because let's not do it, paint it, and not be able to enforce it because there's not a desire to enforce, or it's sort of like the parking signs. That's the only thing that makes me hesitate because of that. Just make sure we're headed in the right direction. So maybe it's bringing Officer Gilman in and having a conversation again.
If we had complaints from the tree area from
I haven't heard anything.
I've heard a couple of things, people walking their dogs, cars parked on the sidewalk.
cars parked on the sidewalk, but not the complaints about the 2-way or 1-way or.
There was observations made about, well, what are you gonna do if there's a car and then a snowplow and an emergency vehicle need to get through, or, I mean, all these what if scenarios. You know, they're not parking engineers or street engineers and designers. I don't know. Right now, we have a motion on the floor to have public hearings with regard to sidewalks
I'm
and
going to
parking.
withdraw my motion.
Okay then. We've decided to punt.
I'll table it and have Officer Gilman come in.
I would agree with that.
Okay, but the one motion they did vote on that passed, I just want to clear. is
Painting Cedar Street.
Good, we can take a look, see what it looks like.
With the little man.
The only comment I've heard is it's been
Yeah.
6 or 8 years.
Why
and you
haven't you
guys
done
haven't
anything?
Or whatever thing. So. And I know that no matter what we do,
Somebody won't like it.
nobody's not gonna make everybody happy.
That's why you base it on the traffic engineer. You put him as the scapegoat. This
There
is
you
the
go.
design that
Oh,
is going
no,
to appear
we're
in
the
your choices.
scapegoat ultimately, but we have to do
Basically,
it on
as a
factual
traffic engineer, we
scientific
can't do
data
anything.
as best we can.
The only complaint I've heard is why aren't the speed bumps up on Cedar Street now that the road's paved?
Talk to,
Because they're gonna take them up in less than what, a month.
Well, a couple months, so.
yeah, it'll be a couple of months. How long does it take to put them down?
They've got to put in a
Oh, they have to
connector
put in new,
to bolt it down into, and
it's all new stuff.
Well, maybe we can put that way down Kevin's list.
so you're going to be breaking his new pavement?
And then by the time they get installed, they'll be
There you go.
On his list, I'm sure.
Is there any other reason to extend this further? All right, there's no motions on the floor. There's no other business currently. The floor is still yours.
Thank you. So, let's see, what else? The sign on the bridge. So I asked for a design, which I have, for you to take a look at. This is the no congregating on the bridge sign. There are two
These fans are whipping around tonight.
examples. Now it's all ready to, thinking we were ready forward. And I brought to my attention that the bridge is actually in the deed, included in the deed for the island. Which means,
It's both.
you should probably ask Northfield about putting the sign up. And it probably should say Tilton and
Even
Northfield
though the bridge is in Tilton,
Bridge is part of the deed. Yeah,
okay. Then we definitely should talk to the selectmen from Northfield.
They might, knowing under the circumstances, they might just want it like this.
They should have all the specifics about the bridge explained to them.
I like the one on the right.
Which is the red one?
Yep.
Yeah, I did too. But,
Anyone else?
so,
3.
I like red.
so
I guess, so do we put Tilton on there? Do we put Tilton Northfield? Do we put
you
the
could just say,
owners, the
you
purveyors?
could just put 5 Works Select. You don't say Tilton and or Northfield. However, I still need to go to Northfield. I think we need to because it's jointly owned.
And that's fine, but just, I explained it to them.
Oh, I will.
You know,
I will, but
And actually, that deed and the bridge is an important thing because that obligates them to take care of their part of maintenance. Do they understand the condition of the bridge?
no, because up until the point that, I wrote a grant.
Yes.
I need to let them know about.
Yes.
So,
There's things they don't know.
right. But it's I didn't know.
So we should
Yeah.
talk to staff.
Well, I just wanted to bring it to your attention first and then I'll give them a call and let them know.
Okay?
All right. So the next item is the Burger King litter. Our health officer did look at that. She voiced some concerns about us enforcing only one business. If we do that, then we should be looking at enforcing everywhere. And do we have the resources to do that?
You're missing something here.
They pulled in the garbage cans at Burger King, so there's no more outdoor bar garbage. And the litter going on the ground and going out onto the road. So that's why the complaint was first filed. But I don't think every place has removed all their garbage.
No, no, and I was the one who brought it to the attention a few weeks back. And it was just, they took all of their trash cans. And they did it a couple times before, and we've told them to put them out, they've had to put them back out again. So like a frequent flyer with that.
Sort of like the signage issue. Do it for one, we're gonna do it for all. And
So,
I think that was what prompted that
So
perspective.
the thing is, you know, if somebody is in violation, all of them, they should be notified that you're supposed to have trash cans. I mean, you go and look at our wetlands drive down Sherwood Drive, look at the trash that's thrown across the street, drifting across there. You look, you know, any of these restaurants, if not, we should just not have any ordinances, you know, like the Wild Wild West. So.
Are you talking about the big box store?
Any of those places, any ordinance.
The field is terrible. It's trash.
And there's more and more trash around. I see it blowing down from my house. I see it, I pick it up across the street. But these are a lot of the stores that do primarily take out that, and we should be enforcing our ordinances.
Or give up on them altogether.
I think part of it is more people are eating drive-through.
Yep.
And you can't put canisters all on the street and the easiest way is out the window.
I get Burger King stuff over at my house. I have to walk, they're leaving Tilton, they've finished their burger at this point, everything goes out the window. We can't legislate that kind of
But
ignorance.
if you look around the parking lots of those stores, you know, seeing
True.
people who literally eat their food, they don't see a trash can and boom, out the
Yeah.
window. And that's, and we have, you go up to McDonald's. I think all the food's all anyway. If you go to McDonald's, you look and they have all lots of trash cans and there is less trash. And they empty them.
It blows the Burger King.
Restaurants don't want garbage all around their restaurant, by and large. I mean, they just don't.
So, you know, all this, so
If we have an ordinance, we should be enforcing it.
But do we have the resources to enforce it?
Like,
send a letter to them. I mean, how hard is that?
Send a chain letter. You just make one size fits all. You're in violation of the ordinance. You have to have garbage cans out in front of your plate. Now, unless the governor's orders, suspend that on some level.
So I'll ask the health officer to send out letters to the restaurants.
are there more than one that's in violation? Or okay, so what you're saying is if you do it to one, you're gonna do it to everybody.
Correct.
If they're in violation, you send them a letter.
But how do you know they're in violation unless you're out there looking at everything?
Complaints, I
I would
mean,
say if a citizen
so
calls
it's-
in complaints,
so-
that we should
So
be
it's
doing something.
only, just so I'm clear, so it's only if somebody brings a complaint to her attention, it's not, we're asking her. to go
that's
out.
the way the health officers always operated in Tilton.
Should we send
They're not proactive, going around
Oh, that's
just casually inspecting things.
We had the same thing with dock sizes.
Okay, I've got my direction. I'll ask her to send out letters to those folks that we get complaints.
And then we'll see what we have to do beyond that.
Okay. So just an FYI, we are working on personnel policies and that veterans elderly exemption brochure. Gail's been working on that with me, and she's been doing some great work on it. I expect we'll have a draft for you of personnel policies and this brochure next week or the week after, depending on how our schedule goes for what we're working on. Peter, you had asked for the serial number on the water meter. Tim's back here. So the serial number I got from the water district is a different number than the serial number that we have, the invoice that we have. So I don't know what you want.
Does it match the serial number that New England backflow, on their bills, they put up the numbers listed, Tim? Because the one you showed was like 1,000, wasn't it?
Yes.
No, New England backflow has a 6-digit number.
That's, well, this is a set,
Or seven.
58389571. So anyway, you asked for the information. I don't know what you want me to do with it. That's the information. So that's all I have unless anyone has any questions for me.
Is there any other business to come before the Board of Selectmen this
Yes.
evening?
So next week, our agenda is only evaluations, or what are we gonna do with that?
Well, next week, since you asked, do you want to have Officer Gilman in to talk about? So we got it. This is what we've got to do. We've got performance evaluations on DPW, land use. Mine may or may not be ready yet for my folks, so I'm not really sure at this point. We've got Noel Glenn, we had invited in to go over how evidence is done.
Oh, great.
Right, you had asked if
Uh-huh.
August 13th, she's supposed to be in for that. So that's on the agenda, and then Officer Gilman, if we're gonna talk about the tree streets.
So can we do another night for evaluations?
But I don't think they should take that long, if it's just DPW and
Who's doing your evaluation?
you want.
Well, who's doing Jeannie's evaluation?
I can
The chairman's
start it.
supposed to do it.
I can start it and then disseminate it to you guys. And then you guys can weigh in. And we can come up with something like that. How's that sound?
All right, so I'll give you myself appraisal.
Okay, that's a good place to start.
So back to your question. Me, I did his last year. I do his, Gail's, the chief's, Catherine's, and Leanne, yes. And Kevin. But back to DPW and land use, you've got 2 part-time people for review. You've got the DPW folks, so I don't think it's going to be that long. You don't have to have a separate meeting for that. I don't know that I'll have all my reviews done.
Might go up to the next week.
Okay, so why don't we count on that? Put Officer Gilman and Officer Glenn in here and do it that way.
Okay.
The book is closed, kids. Is there any other business to come before the Board of Selectmen this evening? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying good night.
Good night.
Aye.
Good.